Hi guys. So this video is an add-on, an addendum to the videos I did last time, my frustrations with the system videos. Because I forgot things. My notes weren't great. And I figured this title was more eye-catching than just, nerdy language addendum type title, like I usually do. So if you're wondering, the United Nations has a document. I'm looking down at my phone here, sorry, called the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I feel like this might be the one chance, or one of the very few chances, that we have in this province and in this country of getting enough money to live on, enough supportive housing, and all the other supports that people with disabilities are not receiving. Um, it's a very long document and many articles if you want to take a look. What I'm referencing here is the rights around housing and poverty, and they're actually violating our UN rights by keeping us, we're like 40% below the poverty line on the current money the government gives us, the 1169 a month I talked about in the previous video. And to me, that's major. That might actually force the government to do something. But another thing in there that caught my attention was the right to choose who you live with. So these are the rights the United Nations says that all disabled persons should have. And that comes into play when it comes to supportive housing. When I looked into supportive housing in the region, the county where I live, the programs that they have require you to have a roommate. And that's violating, I now know, my UN rights of having the right to choose who I live with. I know, obviously, many people live with roommates, but unless you're in, I don't know, university, you usually have at least some say. Maybe you already know somebody, or you put out an ad and interview some people, right? You still have some say in who you're living with. If I got on the list for the supportive housing, I would have to share my apartment with whoever the government says based on whoever's on this list. They say they pair you up so you're compatible, but that's still the government choosing who I'm living with. I'm not getting a say in this, and that's not right. That's actually violating my UN rights. So I really wanted to mention this in the last video because it's so major, and it feels like the biggest possible catalyst for change. And somehow I forgot to mention this, so I'm mentioning it now. Because I feel that the best tool that our cause has and any cause has is knowledge and awareness. I think you can never know too much. You should always be learning. I think knowledge is the best tool, and education is like the best weapon, I guess you could say, towards the bad things that happen. And I see that since CERB, Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which I talked about before, how the government set that at $2,000, which is like almost $900 more than we're getting. And the media doesn't like to talk about this for some reason, but there's been a few articles, and I generally don't read comments at all. But when it comes to this, I looked a little bit. I wanted to see what people were saying. And there were a few people being mean, a few very conservative opinions that like taxation is theft and stuff like that. Most people, though, were appalled and supportive, and they had no idea this was going on. Um, Canada, when it comes to socialism, we're a good piece left of the States, but a lot of Western European countries are well ahead of us. That's why I'd put us in the middle here. So most people's comments are not full on anti socialism. There can be some ignorance, like you have it so good, you should get a job. I encounter some of that kind of ignorance, but a lot of that can be combated with awareness, I feel. Um, One misconception, if you're watching in Ontario, I want to clear this out in particular. CAMH, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. That is not an institution like they used to have. They don't provide long term residential. You can't live there indefinitely. The institutions that you see Hollywood still thinks exist, you see them in movies and TVs, where you can commit yourself or someone can have you committed. That's not a thing. Okay? I talked about what needs to happen in terms of residential care in the last video. I just wanted to clarify this misconception. CAMH has a location that is more analogous to a prison than anything, where people who've been found not guilty by reason of insanity are housed. Um, but that's not a residence. There are no homes that we can just go to when, that's a misconception. When people, homeless people, 80% of homeless people in Toronto are on social assistance. 55% is ODSP, and the others, the 25% is OW, which is welfare. And apparently, a good percentage of those people are disabled and can't get an ODSP because of all the red tape. So people see, hear these and they say, "Want are places for them to live?" No, okay, no. So I just wanted to clear that up because I've seen that a lot in the comments. Um, and another thing I forgot to mention is Developmental Services Ontario. When that was put into place, that agency, the government agency, a whole bunch of different services for people with disabilities were all put under that agency. The problem is you have to have intellectual disability. So many services that used to exist, people with autism, I can no longer access because I have a average IQ. And a lot of people don't realize that either. They think you have autism. Aren't there kind of all these autism services? No, there's not much for adults anyway. And what there is, I can't access most of it anymore. And people within the system don't even seem to know that. I had a doctor, it's quite a long story, but basically, he gave me the name of a center for people with autism he thought I should access. And when I tried to access it, they told me it was through the DSO. Um, and I said to the lady on the phone, "But I don't qualify for the DSO. I don't, my IQ's too high." And she said, "You should try anyway. They have other criteria." So I called them. The lady on the phone for the agency told me I should apply because I still might get in with other disabilities. So I went through this whole, it's been a whole afternoon being assessed for this. And then they call me back and they say to me, "Your IQ's too high. You don't get in." And they didn't even look at anything else. So the government doesn't even know what they're doing. So this is what I'm facing. And I'm going to end this with a couple more positive things because I always fear that Americans will hear me complaining and it'll make them afraid of single payer healthcare. So I do want to highlight a couple positive things that exist. So one is personal support workers, PSWs. The majority of them work with the elderly, usually in long-term care facilities, sometimes in-home visits, but they can be assigned to people with all kinds of different disabling conditions to go to their home and help them with care. They don't do medical things. Well, maybe things that are sort of kind of medical, like feeding tubes and catheters. Nothing intense medical, nothing that needs a nurse. It's more activities of daily living, like bathing, for example, or dressing. So certain people with disabilities, and I do know of some, can receive that support. So that is something that does exist. So anything positive I want to highlight. And the other thing that they're called community health centers. There's one in the city next to mine. When I say city, all of the suburbs that border Toronto are now cities in their own right based on population. So the city next to me has one of these community health centers. I know they're in other parts of the province as well. And only certain populations can access them. I had to be referred through my doctor, but I am now able to see a dietitian, talk to a counselor. I'm doing an exercise class, which all of this has to be phone or Zoom right now, but I'm accessing all these services for free. And again, that's something worth highlighting. There's not anywhere near enough of that to go around, but it's something. It's a start. So I just want to throw in a couple positives to sort of. It's not all terrible. The main. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for watching.